Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and prolific NFL player Cam Newton testing positive for COVID-19. First thing I want to say is my prayers go out to Cam Newton, and I do hope he makes a good recovery in rapid one. He's a Taurus sun. He may have very good recuperative powers, although in some cases with Taurus, things are very methodical. It might actually go slow, but he will, having a Taurus sun and Leo moon, I mean, obviously I'm sure he's very strong-willed, and I believe he will fight this very strongly. I was very surprised by this. Well, maybe I shouldn't be too surprised because these cases of the coronavirus and COVID-19, they seem to be growing rapidly with famous people, and it's just another reminder, and not to be overly redundant with this, people, but that nobody really, not many people are impervious to this. And this certainly is a virus that doesn't show favoritism by as far as physical stature or your stature in life may go. Yes, there may be a lot of asymptomatic people, or there may be some people that may have certain immunity to it, um, but it's not favoring people by their physical size, their stature in life. Uh, the thing is, I had to improvise once again and do a solar/sunrise chart because I didn't have a time of birth for Cam Newton. I wish I would have more charts online for famous sports celebrities. It would really be good. But I mean, I can't complain too much. They do have a lot of famous people's charts with the time of birth, but it seems like they could have a little bit more with these sports athletes. But anyway, I'm going to talk about some natal placements and transits in his chart that may have been astrologically related to him contracting COVID-19. And you look at some of the things, something that I've noticed that may stand out to some degree. Well, he does have in his natal chart, he does have Pluto in the sixth house, well, as far as the solar sunrise chart goes. Now, Pluto is connected with viruses. He does have it in Scorpio, and it's in the sixth house of health, and it opposes his sun in Taurus. And now, and again, Pluto can be about viruses. Being in Scorpio, the sign of viruses, Pluto is in its dignity in Scorpio, though it's generational. It still could have certain impact in one's chart, and he does have it again in the sixth house of health. And this is something too. I'm looking at his chart as well. He has Chiron in Cancer, in the zodiac sign Cancer, conjunct his Mars. Now, Mars in Cancer by itself can give some physical related issues connected with the chest and stomach area. Now, some symptoms connected with the coronavirus. Some can include a persistent pain in the chest, and the fact that Chiron is conjunct his Mars, that could actually give more suffering with that. Even Chiron and Cancer by itself can give some physical related matters associated with something Cancer related, such as some zodiac sign Cancer related, such as something with the chest or a breast or stomach area. Now, the thing is, um, you're looking at it, and then the conjunction with Mars may give more pain with it. As far as pain goes, it might give additional pain. Chiron can be about physical wounds like incisions. So at some point in his life, he may have to have some kind of surgery on the chest or stomach area. But anyway, now another thing in his chart, um, he has stellium in Gemini in the first house in the solar sunrise chart. Now, the coronavirus situation out of the way, I thought this be very good stellium because it starts out with Venus, which is money, And when you talk about, stellium in a natal chart, and you break it down systematically, basically, a stellium can be defined as three or more planets that are in a series of conjunctions with each other. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be in the same sign, but it is in the same sign. In this case, it starts out with Venus in Gemini, followed by Mercury in Gemini, then ending with Jupiter in Gemini. Now, the fact that it starts out with Venus, it means Venus is about money. And again, the stellium can make an astrological statement, starting out with Venus in Gemini, then followed by Mercury in Gemini, and ending with Jupiter in Gemini. Now, Venus can be about money, and the fact that it's conjuncting Mercury, that could be one's cerebral ability, money made using one's cerebral ability, and then followed by Jupiter and the affinity to play sports. The fact that this is in Gemini, this further emphasizes doing this using the cerebral ability, but could also show versatility. And it wouldn't surprise me if he's actually played other sports very well, and maybe at some point in his life he deviates from football and goes into some other sport. But it could also be, just doing, manifold sports in general. Now, it falls in the first house in the solar sunrise chart, which can give more personal satisfaction. Now, from a COVID-19 standpoint, keep in mind that Gemini could be associated with the respiratory system, the lungs, and can even be issues, like breathing, uh, the arms, the hands. Now, Jupiter in Gemini by itself, he has Jupiter in Gemini, Jupiter, as I've stated in previous videos, can be very paradoxical, could be very strongly benign and benevolent, but it could also have a tendency to enlarge and expand. Now, in some cases, it can enlarge and expand issues with the lungs, the respiratory system, breathing. Those all could be symptoms connected with the coronavirus. He even has Jupiter conjunct his Mercury in his chart in the first house of the physical body in the solar sunrise chart. And Jupiter conjunct Mercury can exacerbate Mercury-related issues, and those could be issues with the hands, the shoulders, the arms. That could be, just general muscular aches, or just general pains in those areas and aches, because the coronavirus can manifest in some cases, as far as symptoms go, just general aches. And I don't know if it necessarily shows favoritism toward any part of the body. I would think that it could be virtually in any part, but the fact he has the stellium in Gemini could be in Gemini-related areas like the arms, the shoulders, the hands, the wrists, even just something Gemini related. Now, also too, notice in his chart, as far as anything that any transits I'm seeing that can be associated, as far as the coronavirus goes. Now, he also has at this time transit Mars is in that 12th house in the solar sunrise chart, and that can indicate as far as vitality and energy being limited at this point in time. The fact that we have at this time as well that collectively, Chiron transit Chiron in Aries and Mars in Aries transit Chiron in Aries can manifest in some cases in physical suffering that is associated with the head. It could be headaches or even fever-related issues, which I believe can be symptoms of the coronavirus. He also, at this time, he has transit Neptune in his 11th house in the solar sunrise chart. And I hope this is, you're talking about Neptune being in Pisces, the transit itself. Neptune in Pisces can be about issues of diseases of ones that can't be eradicated or cured, which can include the coronavirus. The fact that it's in that 11th house This is strongly could be affecting his relationships with his friends, acquaintances, goals, aspirations, group-related involvements at this time. And another thing I've noticed too in his chart, he does have Neptune conjunct Saturn in the ninth house. Ninth house could be associated with sports. Neptune can be about diseases, and then Saturn can be about one's career. So it's not a surprise that this disease that is going around, this COVID-19, has strongly impacted his career, and perhaps more so than most people. And then the ninth house can be associated with sports. And he does have, what I noticed too, he has Sagittarius on the cusp of the eighth house. So, and then eighth house can be associated with viruses. Sagittarius is global energy. So it's not surprising he contracted some issue, something that was global related, that's a virus. The ruler of the eighth house, Jupiter, falls in his first house. And the thing about this is, I understand the first house is the early part of one's life, the early childhood. But to me, when somebody has something like, the ruler of the eighth house in the first house, sometimes I think that can manifest in a death in the early part of one's life, earlier part, or it could also be, somebody contracting a virus in the earlier part of one's life as well. Now, another thing I've noticed too is that transit Venus at this time is very close conjunction to his natal south node. And when you're talking about the south node in astrology, that could be about south node involved in a transit can be about what one may be going away from. And the fact that this is something, Venus in Virgo, Venus can be about what one values. Virgo is the sign of employment. It could be, in this case, it could be about work. It could be about some enjoyment in something work related that he is going, or that he is going away from. That's an indicator of that. And it's near the fifth house cusp in his solar sunrise chart. The fifth house can be associated with sports. Having, even though it's solar sunrise chart, having Virgo on the cusp of that fifth house, that tells me that he's really, he really enjoys dissecting these defenses, deciphering, analyzing the defenses when he's as a quarterback in the NFL, perhaps more so than others. His chart setup is similar to mine, except in in my chart, I have the fifth house intercepted. He doesn't have that. There's no interceptions in the solar sunrise chart, but he has his sun in Taurus very close to where my ascendant is, because his sun in Taurus in the solar sunrise chart is at 20 degrees and my ascendant is 22 degrees. His sun is not far from 21 degrees Taurus, and it may be at 21 degrees Taurus if he's born at a later time in the day, and that would put the sun at a critical degree. The sun is about our vitality and energy, but also the physical body to some degree as well. Now, I don't know what his ascendant is. The ascendant, of course, is what dominates the physical body in one's chart, and health-related issues connected with it. Now, he has a Leo moon. That's where we're showing that, that need to be perhaps to express flamboyancy, to be flamboyant and show certain extra vision and command attention. What's interesting to me is that even though his moon in Leo is not squaring the sun in Taurus based on the solar sunrise time, that there's a strong disparity in the energy of his sun in Taurus and the moon in Leo, because the sun in Taurus is a little bit more reticent than Leo energy. Sun in Taurus can be very quiet, very taciturn, more passive energy, and a lot quieter and more introverted. And then when um, you look at the moon in Leo, I mean, it's almost just the opposite, because Leo can be very extroverted, gregarious, more extravagant. I mean, you see him a lot of times, if I'm not mistaken, wearing, like, I don't know if it's like expensive jewelry, and his clothing is very stylish. And it's really such a contrast to the more conservative Taurus, who generally, I mean, Taurus can be almost reclusive compared to Leo. And so it's such a, tremendous difference in the Sun and Taurus, the conscious energy versus the unconscious energy of his moon in Leo. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a Leo ascendant as well, because but the ascendant of, as many of you may know, that's the outer demeanor, that's the energy that is expressed very naturally, and that could put his Sun in Taurus, maybe in the 10th house in his actual natal chart, or near the MC of the career, and that's where you're going to shine. Where your Sun is in astrology is where you're going to shine. So that would not shock me if he actually has a Leo ascendant in his chart, and that would put a number of those planets. It would put a lot of that Gemini energy in the top half of the chart, in the 10th and or 11th house, maybe 10th house being career, 11th house goals, our goals and our aspirations. So the thing about this, though, is even though it's the solar sunrise chart, okay, it puts Pisces on the 11th house cusp. And Pisces on the 11th house cusp by itself could be an indicator of one's future being somewhat nebulous, obscure, and unclear. The transit of Neptune in the 11th house can be an indicator that the goals and the aspirations can be nebulous and unclear at this time. And he has to also guard against friends that could be rather duplicitous and deceptive at this point in time as well. And the fact he's got, what I'm noticing too, is that transit Sun in the solar sunrise chart is close to the 6th house cusp at this time. So that could give a focus on health-related matters. The fact that his relationship to his health, the fact that, the Libra can be about relationships, and maybe this is his own relationship to physical health-related matters. And it's also at this time, it could also be Libra-related, health-related issues, such as perhaps issues with the lower back, the kidneys, the endocrine system, and also focus on having a balanced, maybe a diet, health, health situation in his life. It could be a health regime, maybe some kind of workout, um, you know, program at this time, fitness program. So anyways, really not much more I wanted to get at that I could, as far as looking at transits and natal placements in his chart that may be tied in to him contracting COVID-19. The fact that transit Mercury is closing in on his natal Pluto. Now, I believe transit Mercury is going to be going retrograde soon, but the fact that we even have transit Mercury in Scorpio at this time, it's not surprising that there's going to be a lot more just communications in general that are very provocative and deep, in communications about viruses, things that are deadly, things that can be perilous, and also going deep, where the mind will be going deep into these matters at this time. And the fact he's got transit Mercury in Scorpio in that 6th house of health in the solar sunrise chart tells me that he might be doing a lot of deep communications regarding health related matters. Transit Mercury in Scorpio by itself can be about going beyond mentally thinking, going beyond superficiality and subterfuge, and going beyond the surface in issues in general. So this is, and the fact he's also gotten in the solar sunrise chart, Uranus is in his eighth house. Some cases this could be about an unusual death, or one that comes very shocking or surprising. Now, I don't think he's going to pass away due to the COVID-19, the coronavirus, but he still needs to be very careful. Everyone does that contracts this at this time. This is something that is not going to be, shouldn't be taken lightly. And as I stated before, it's not one, the COVID-19 is certainly not something that shows any favoritism. It's not biased toward one's physical stature or size. If you're somebody that's very healthy, or you work out vigorously and you haven't had any major debilitations in recent time, it's not going to matter. Yes, people can be asymptomatic. There may be some people that have some immunity to this. I'm not really sure. There might be a certain degree of immunity, but it's not. But it's not going to be based on your physical size in health. At least largely, it won't. Now, some people, maybe older people, may be more vulnerable or more susceptible to it, or what have you, but it doesn't seem to play a role in one's physical size by any means. So, and even in your stature in life, I mean, you're not going to be impervious or invincible to this or immune to this based on where you are in life. And people have to remember this. And arrogance is certainly something right now that people need to eliminate and eradicate. If anybody that goes around acting like, this could never happen to me, a lot of times that's when it can happen. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.